What's up, everybody? Welcome on Into One Soccer. Today, Andy Petrillo, Garrett Wheeler, Jordan Wilson. You ready to go, Jordan? You were like,
No, you
whoa.
know what? I looked up and I love both of your guys' frames, but I just felt left out. That's all it was. I like as soon as I picked up
Sorry.
my head, I just wanted
Get
to.
some, bro.
I need
Get
to.
some. Get some
You guys are
specs.
great.
Yeah.
You guys,
They don't have
Andy's
to have,
stepping up her
I have
your
20/20
game right
vision though.
now, Andy.
So
yeah.
am I a fraud if I wear glasses if I don't need
No,
them?
no. It's called an accessory. Guess what? I still
Oh,
wear a watch and I never look at it for time.
Yeah,
I always rely on my phone, but it's an
me too.
accessory. Wear an
Yeah.
accessory,
got it.
darling.
Okay,
Jordan, go
accessorize.
like this. Go like this all
I
show.
don't even think I can do it. I think, no Cyclops.
Ah,
A
guys,
monocle.
Oh,
put your
Hello.
glasses on. Get the
I
alter
should get a
egos
monocle.
going because we've got a lot of movement to discuss. It's being reported the Canadian international Ismaël Koné is being sent on a loan deal to Stade Rennais. And on previous shows, guys, we covered in depth how it seems like he has fallen out with his manager at Marseille, his manager publicly calling him out on multiple occasions as well. So now he joins a side, apparently, that's sitting 15th in Liga, just outside the relegation zone. Do you like this move for Koné, Wheels?
That depends. By the way, he didn't apparently fall out with the coach. He did fall right out with the coach, which meant that the power that Roberto De Zerbi has at Marseille right now just made the situation untenable. I'm really not sure about this move. Clearly, Ismaël Koné had to go. Rennes is a decent enough club, but they're mired in a not very good season. The underlying data and analytics show that they should be okay. They should be around a mid-table side. But what concerns me is just a week ago, São Paulo went out of the club as manager. They just brought in a new manager. What does that mean in terms of consistency or some sort of like concerted vision here that's going to put Koné in the best position to succeed? Clearly, Club Rennes or Stade Rennes realized that getting a player like Koné in was advantageous for the club. My question is this advantageous for the player? This is going to be his sixth manager over the course of the past 3 seasons. He had 3 at Watford, De Zerbi at Marseille, Wilfried Nancy at CF Montreal. And you've heard the criticism of the player, maybe some of his his work rate or focus or whatever it is that's really bothering these managers, or they think that's a hindrance. For me, he just needs a manager that's going to put his arm around him and help show him the way. And that sort of inconsistency for me really just doesn't help a young player trying to find his way through the professional game. So I hope that there's stability at this club. Fingers crossed. And I hope that he ends up staying potentially in the club, stays in league, because another move in the summer, nothing feels stable or permanent right now for the player. And that for me is the most problematic.
I think if I was looking at Ismaël Koné, wheels and trails of a player that's been a pro for 5, 10, 7 years, I'd be like, oh, okay, you'd expect a bit more from him. But I understand the fact that you have De Zerbi saying that maybe he's not a professional. He's only been a professional since 2021 at CF Montreal for 1 season where he was glorified. And everyone was saying he's going to be the next big thing. To get so much so fast, I think Ismaël Koné has handled it well. But now he's in a position where it's like, sink or swim. You have that potential, and I always say this about young players. You're only a young player with potential for so long. Now he has to hit the ground running. I like that he's in Ligue 1 in a country that obviously he's speaking French. That is going to be a huge plus for him. But as Will said too, it's really about getting into that club and showing what you're made of and learning your stripes bit by bit, which is like one of those things. I don't think Ismaël Koné is there just relaxing and just relying on his talent. But you have to hit the ground running and show that you want to be there, that even though you're a new professional, that you still have that professional mindset to go to the next level. I think he has it, but you just got to show that every day when you step up to train.
He needs stability. Like, look, this is a loan deal. There's a buy option. That's why I hope he stays. They settle on a manager, and the club brings some consistency. That's what he needs right now. I agree. I don't think De Zerbi handled the situation the right way. I said that before, and now he's in a position where he just needs a rock. He needs to have some love, and he needs to have some understanding right now. If not, this is just going to be another few months where you're kind of transient. You're not part of the new club. You're just there on loan to do a job. I think he needs a home. He needs a place with stability. That's key right now.
Guys, we've been covering sports for a very long time. Jordan playing sports for a very long time. You see how easily a young human being who's athletically gifted can suddenly get treated too quickly like a grown adult when there's still a lot of growing to do. Koné, to your point, not only has he just been a pro for a few years, he's still just 22 years of age, but he's so gifted. He's done incredible things already on the pitch, not just pro, but with the national team, that it's easy to get caught up to say, you already need to be here, not realizing like he's still here. And I love the way you said that, Wheels. Like he needs somebody to put just an arm around them. And I wonder if anyone's doing that. I wonder who he's leaning on, from teammates to coaches to just anyone who can help him through this. And I know there's some people, there's other young people who have figured it out. Sure. I mean, you even look at an Alphonso Davies, but he was scouted early on. And at 16 years of age, he had tons of mentors around him at Vancouver before making his jump. So I wonder, who's doing that for Koné? This is still a very young player. But I guess having said that, now he's in the throes of this professional world, Jordo. So do you think it's a bit of a wake-up call to say, all right, kid, like your athleticism can only get you so far. Now what's happening kind of between the ears also needs to pick up a little bit.
Yeah, I guess people from the outside looking in will probably look at it as a wake-up call. I think for Koné, he just needs to look at this as another opportunity. The same way footballers do. You have to go to club or whatever it might be, and you don't lose enthusiasm. You're going to this is my new home. Yeah, he's 22. For me, when I was 22, I thought I was a man. You're a kid still. You have you go about your day-to-day trying to be the best that you can be. But when you look at Koné, he's a vibes player. He's a player when he's feeling good, when he feels trusted, when he knows that, hey, if I make a mistake here, I'm not going to get scolded and taken off at halftime. He thrives. So Wheels is right. You're so right as well, Trills, of that man management that player needs. I don't think he needs to be coddled. I think he needs to be challenged, but also understanding where he is as a newer pro with extreme upside. Yeah, you could call it a wake-up call, but I think for him, this is an opportunity for him to just to go further in his career, to take that step, because he has stuff in his game and his makeup that people take decades to try to get. But he has that. Now it's just that mental side that you guys have covered sports for the longest time. That is what takes you from good to great, is how you really go about your makeup and your day-to-day. And that's what he needs to continue to learn. So I don't think it's a wake-up call. I think this is a time for him to really go and shine and look at it as a positive experience.
I'm only putting so much on the player. I like how you brought up Davies with Vancouver Whitecaps. I mean, he had professional experience from the age of 15. And the edict at that time with some very good people at the Whitecaps was, let's not mess this up. Like, really. Yeah. So they went step by step just in terms of his growing process. Ismaël Koné was like a footballing nomad for a while, looking for a professional club, looking for that environment. I think you raise a good point that he's only been in there for so long. That's why it's incumbent on his management. I'm sure that Jesse Marsh is highly involved here, just in terms of making sure he's in the right landing spot. That's why loan moves at this time of year, they're more for older players that need playing time. They simply need a play or change of environment. Koné needs a change of environment, but he needs an environment where he can grow into. This is going to take a little bit of time here. It's not one of those short-term things. So I hope that this turns into a more well-thought-out long-term play. That's why I didn't like the move to Watford in the first place. A team that changes their coach more than they change their shirt. So yeah, so here we go, the merry-go-round. We'll see where he ends up here. I'm wishing him nothing but the best.
Wheels, I was really hoping you said undies. I was really hoping.
Me too.
I was gonna go there.
I can see Trills giggling, so she's like, "Say undies, say it."
I was like, "You can do it, Wheels."
Socks?
Say underpants.
Oh, it's going to be stuff. One of those shows, isn't it? Okay. Let's change the subject. So from Koné, we're going to go on over to CONCACAF Champions Cup, which begins tomorrow, guys. But of course, we're going to focus on the CPL sides. Wednesday, Forge hosts Monterrey. Thursday, Calvary hosts Pumas. Wheels, you have some news, though, when it comes to Forge's squad. What's going on there?
Yeah, it's probably going to have been broken by the time that we go to air. But at the time of recording, sources have told us that Malik Olawabi-Belawu is on his way out of Forge, a transfer to Chesterfield in League Two. The London-born player played 72 games with Forge. I think he was at his best last year as well. Versatile, playing left-sided center back as well as left back as well. He goes on. It sounds like there's a sell-on fee as well. A nice little transfer fee as well. I'm being told that the move for Oluwabi-Bello was more to do for personal reasons rather than the sporting project at Forge. So he goes back to the UK. A new challenge. Chesterfield certainly needs players, but mid-table in League Two. So Forge FC losing yet another defender. I mean, it's an off season of great change in terms of the defensive shape of this team heading into CONCACAF Champions Cup. And I guess the happiest person right now would be Federico Bernardeschi in case that Forge plays Toronto FC in the not so distant future. Bernardeschi doesn't have to worry about Oluwabi-Bello anymore.
Putting him in
unless he ends up in League Two. Bernardeschi could end up in League Two. Who knows?
If there's a player that embodies English football, it is Oluwabi-Bello. Strong, loves a tackle, can get up and down. I could see him at that center back position, that left-footed center back, and holding his own in that league for sure. Love tackles in that league, Trills. Elbows, everything's flying. They give it all every game.
I like the player. I like him.
And this is the thing, right? You're torn because it's great to see that for the player and you wish him the best and that move and what it could do for him. But at the same time, you're looking at Forge going, this is a roster now that's just getting picked apart. And when you head into this type of tournament, so you have Forge, right, who has been the better team historically. You have Cavalry, who has been the better team recently, and we know has maintained the majority of their roster from their championship team last year. So which side, as they head into this competition, Jordo, are you actually trusting more in the first round matchup?
I'm split, and I'll say my two reasons why I'm split. The first one for Forge is the fact that this will be their 21st game in CONCACAF. No team in Canada has played more games outside of their domestic competitions than Forge. Calvary has the same group coming back and playing on that nice tiny pitch at Vancouver Islands where I look good on that pitch. I can ping it any corner, right? Because it's miniature, it's small. So it's tough to say, but I think for me, I got to put Calvary because that cohesive group, Toby, he's a game changer. You see that strike there. He's someone that can show up big in a game. It's going to be a tough match, obviously, because you're playing Mexican Giants that are in season, and this is a Forge and Calvary's first game of the season. But I give Calvary a little bit of the leeway, the head finish across the line. But it's going to be a tight one regardless.
Who are you trusting, Wheels?
Well, I'll trust Forge, but I like to kind of document what they've kind of transition they've gone through this offseason. So they basically lose 3 players of their back 4 as well as their holding midfielder this offseason. Duncan, Matusala, Para gone, Samuel gone, Oluwabi-Bello gone. There's Ashley Janssen, who's a converted center back and a good one at that, holding down the fort. I should also say this kind of happened the season before where Rezart Rama and Menjikar James left Forge, so this won't be anything new heading in. The fact that they did bring in Dan Nimick, Rama comes back to Forge. He's still very familiar with the team. Of course, Ashniote Janssen is going to be holding down the fort. I thought he could maybe be an option, stepping up into central midfield with Alessandro Hujabrapor not being there any longer as well. And they brought in a new Serbian left back, and the reviews are pretty decent about him thus far. So I think they're going to be okay. Despite the change, I think Forge is a team that you back here to have a little bit of a better chance. Cavalry have not replaced Dan Klump. I'm not sure if he is replaceable like for like. And for me, he's not just the most important player on Cavalry last season, but the most important player in the Canadian Premier League. Forge have consistency in their team in terms of the way they play, and they bolstered their attack. Adding Brian Wright as number 9. And Mo Babuli, by the way, Jordan Wilson uses a stat about how much Forge has played in CONCACAF competition. Babuli is second all-time in goals scored in that competition for Forge, so a familiar face who's proven that he can produce as well. And on top of it all, Andy, and you'll appreciate this, it is going to be cold. It's going to be awful in Hamilton on Wednesday night. Like, bundle up, Monterrey. Like this, I think that will more influence who Monterrey may bring up for this tie. Pumas, Monterrey, both very good sides. Monterrey success in the Final Four of this competition last season. They were in the final, the Apertura as well. But who are they going to bring with games coming thick and fast in terms of Liga MX? I think they might save their first team to play at home, might bring up some reserves in the awful freezing cold that will be Hamilton, Ontario on Wednesday night. I got to fancy Forge in that atmosphere.
Quickly, with Monterrey and Forge, you just played Saturday. You're going to play Wednesday in the freezing cold of Hamilton Stadium. Then you play Saturday again just to play Tuesday back in Mexico. Like, tough matches. Everyone knows with managers to go decide who you're going to play, who you're keeping, what's your core. When you basically play 4 games in 12 days, guys? That's tough.
Yeah, so never going to apologize for it being cold here in Canada. Too bad, so sad if you can't handle it. But can I just be very Canadian here and just say, I hope both of them get a win in leg one. I think both of them have the ability to do it. I know you guys have to pick a side. I'm going to be the peacemaker here, and I'm just going to say, for both reasons that you guys gave in defending each side and who you trust more, I think they're both valid. Like for Cavalry, again, it's a team that has done it together. So there's one thing to have experience in a competition. It's another thing to have experience as a team. And I think they have that, again, because of the majority of the players who are returning. And then how do you turn your back on a Forge side that has the kind of experience in this tournament in general? And when you've still got Bobby Smirniotis at the helm, he knows the moves to make as well to get the best out of his team in the circumstances that he's faced. So having said that, when you look at this competition with both of them having been in it last year, what are some of the things you think, Jordo, they can apply to this year? And you know, because I know Cavalry last year, right? It was a little bit of like, ooh, what's going on here? What's happening here? That's not going to be the case this year.
Yeah, speaking of Bobby Smirniotis and also Tommy Wilden Jr., they just talk about the fine margins when you play teams like this. Like in the CPL, you're playing teams 4 times, maybe you give away the ball 30 yards from your goal, and your keeper makes a big save or goes out for a corner or goal kick, and you get time to recuperate and you get scolded from the sideline. But when you play these Mexican Giants, the ball usually ends up in the back of the net. So I think it's those margins. And that's why for me, when I'm looking at Calvary, I think they'll make those adjustments needed. I think that small pitch really helps them when you need a bunker and defend. But you talk to both coaches, I'm sure they're thinking that first goal is huge. Like, how do you play how do you go about how you want to attack that game? Do you want to sit back a little bit? Can you really do that for 90 minutes when you don't have your legs? Do you go for it? When Calvary played Orlando City last year, they went for it for the first 20 and just made some little mistakes. But I think the biggest thing going into these matches for the CPL side is you cannot make those naive schoolboy errors that happened last year, because these teams are too good and they'll punish you. So you really have to be on your P's and Q's early.
Well, and that's what's so difficult. Match sharpness, game number 1 of the season. Yes, they've been playing exhibitions, friendly warm-up matches, but nothing replicates a competitive fixture, especially playing in difficult conditions when you're stepping up a weight class as well. So things do not play in these sides' favor, but they'll be more prepared this time around than they were a year ago or a year before that. So I expect incremental gains this time around.
All right, guys, let's focus on York United, because big news coming out of that camp. And earlier today, it was made official that Massimo Ferrin has signed with York United. He returns home to Ontario right after a couple seasons with Halifax Wanderers, brings with him a proven track record of creating goals in the CPL. So how big of a signing is this for York, Wheels?
I love it. I think that York United are quietly going about their business and are having a very successful offseason thus far. I mean, they might be flying under the radar, but I've taken notice. A lot of very good players, local players from the Toronto area that are being repatriated or being brought back to the GTA to play for York United. Farron's a player I think had a disappointing campaign last season, started off carrying a little bit of an injury, and it took him way too long to find his groove considering how good he was the season prior. Ended up with 6 goals. He should be a player that's kind of touching the double-digit range for me. And perhaps this change of location, going back home to York United, is what will kind of be the remedy here. I mean, Ferrin was pursued by former York United big boss Angus McNabb a few years ago, but couldn't get it across the line, keeping him in with York United for reasons that were beyond his control. But now he finally comes back. Joins Gabby Bitar, joins Stephen Yates, Adonijah Reed. They ended up bringing Julian Altabelli back from his time at TFC2 last season. Scored 2 goals in MLS Next Plus. Like that's a decent return. That's nothing to kind of ignore. And now he's 22 years old. He kind of had a taste. Never really got a real chance, though, in the Canadian Premier League before, but now he comes back a different player, a little bit older. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he has to bring to the table as well. And just really quickly, like Luke saying, they bring in a couple center backs, but keeping Frank Stirring for me was huge, because when he was fit last season, I thought he was a real difference maker in this league. So I think York are going to be competitive. We'll see what Mauro Eustachio can do with this group, but I'm liking what they're building here slowly and surely.
Mm-hmm. Worth noting, it was actually a transfer fee was paid for him to join York United. So your former team there, Jordo, how are you feeling about it?
I like the signings that they've brought in the case that they're local and that they're players that will really bleed for the club. And for me, that my time there, the players that grew up in the GTA just had a special connection to that club. And I think in the history of York United and even York 9, those players that were around the club in Ontario and the GTA kind of just pushed that club forward. It's nice to see that they've never had this many signings that being local, but I'm still looking at who are the killers, who are the big dogs that are really going to take your team to the next level. I think Farron's that person. Now, with Altobelli, when you're looking at them, you don't really get a second chance a lot of time in football to go to the same club. I know it's island games. It's hard to even talk about that as a season in 2020 in PEI, but I had the 8 games and didn't play under Jimmy Brennan.
Hold on a second. Before you get more into Altobelli, I think people maybe need a little bit of a reminder of that, right?
Okay,
because
sorry.
that is, yes, on Friday, as we know, York United, they signed former TFC2 captain Julian Altobelli. And yes, I think a lot of people are like, wait, do I know that name? Do I know? Well, you do, because he was with York during those island games. He was just 17 years of age at the time. And to your point, like, he didn't really see any action, but he is coming off a season here at TFC2 where he scored 11 goals in MLS Next Pro. So I wonder too, guys, I mean, he's following in the footsteps here a little bit of Shola Jimo, who came from Toronto FC's academy, ended up doing well in CPL, caught the attention of Jesse Marsh, you know, as we all know, and kind of getting a call into that MLS camp that Jesse Marsh held for national team players. So now, Jordo, what do you make of Altobelli, to your point, getting this second chance?
Well, okay, so first on Altobelli, sorry, I'm getting, it's Monday and I'm just trying to speed through everything, Chills, so forgive me with that. But the first thing with Altobelli, you don't get a second chance a lot of time to go to the same club but be in a different position, have new eyes look at you to play for your home club in this position. I think that's huge for him, and how you take that, you have to hit the ground running. But for me, it's also one of those things where I look at it and it makes total sense. Like if I'm Altobelli's parents or I'm his best friend and I'm in his ear, I would say go play for York United, actually play games and go and compete, because you see how many names, Wheels and Trails, play in this league, do well, serve their time, and then have options to move later on. When you get to play against men, when you get to play week in and week out and really hone your craft, like the sky's the limit for you. And I think that's the beauty of what this league provides.
Okay. So let me ask you this then. You know, nobody had really heard about Jimo before he joined York, as mentioned, on the national team radar now with Jesse Marsh because of what he was able to do. A lot of us here have singled him out as CPL's next player that could be on a hefty transfer fee to another club here. So I'm wondering if you guys think that has the CPL become now the most obvious pathway for Canadians to advance their careers over MLS Next Pro, Wheels? I mean, is it too soon to say that, or do you feel confident in saying the CPL seems like the right path as opposed to MLS Next Pro?
I said this last week with the Grady McDonald transfer to Club Brugge. Look, the Canadian Premier League is giving young players an opportunity to play first-team football at a really good level, to show what they have playing against men, established players, week in, week out. That you're not afforded that opportunity with the academy. Within the academies, you're trying to get a first-team contract within that group, and that pathway is becoming more and more difficult as the league becomes more and more competitive. And you mentioned Shola Jimo, Kwesi Poku, like these players were part of the Toronto FC Academy. It took them moving to the Canadian Premier League and being able to play week in, week out on a television broadcast against other Canadians, something that is easily consumable for them to put themselves in the shop window, then go on to make that move. For me, I mean, if I'm 16 years old, I want to be making a professional contract, a decent enough wage with the opportunity to showcase myself to make the move to the next level. So we've seen it. It seems like it's becoming that much more of a preferred path, at least for players that are relishing the challenge and relishing the opportunity.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Jordo? Is that too strong a statement yet, or do you believe it as well?
Oh, I believe it. I think so.
You made us wait. That was like such a pause. I'm like, oh no.
I believe it. No, I think, look, Wheels knows, and it's been proven. You've seen it time and time again. If I'm 16 years old, I'm not trying the MLS Next Pro. I'm playing in this league because that's the way you get battle tested. And then I guess the question I'll ask the TFCs, the CF Montreals, Vancouver Whitecaps, how many players that are playing for your academy or playing MLS Next Pro have a legitimate chance of playing, starting, and being on your club team? Like, how many? And you see this all the time in other clubs. It's like you play academy football to maybe go to a broader net and see where you could go. So I'm like, that's what the CPL is. It's like the way that it's constructed, the way that you can go and battle for your spot and then make a move wherever you want after. That's what it is. Or in another world, you just go and play 10 years in the CPL. There's nothing wrong with that as well. It's just playing professional football, which is something that we've always wanted.
By the way, I called it MLS Next Plus. Shows okay. What I know. Like it was like Apple TV Plus.
You said Pro before, then you said Plus. It's okay.
Bro, did I? Anyway, no matter what it's called.
It's Monday, brother. Monday.
I mean, CF Montreal doesn't have a team playing in MLS Next Pro. And I think that even people within the Canadian clubs, you know, they're part of the MLS family. And I think they kind of feel obligated being a part of that setup. But I think there's some serious debate. Is this what's best for the players? Traveling cross-border week in, week out to play games. Some clubs are better in terms of their development and having good competition than others across that league. And now with what's going on with the trade wars, I don't want to get into the politics or the economics of it all, but it's something worthwhile taking into consideration. There's an inherent cost if the Canadian dollar drops playing in an American league. So players, I think, need to keep their eyes wide open to the options that are readily available for them and pick the option that's best for them. But the Canadian Premier League, with a number of young players, it's not just the players I mentioned, but a number of young players have now received opportunity to take their careers to Europe or beyond. And they're doing that because they're getting the spotlight, they're getting the shine of the Canadian Premier League. No doubt about that.
Hey, we might as well jump on the train. I mean, to your point about what's happening in the world outside of sport, everyone's starting to promote what's made in Canada, purchase in Canada, support Canadian. That is what the Canadian Premier League is all about. So, made in Canada, played by Canadians.
The spokesperson for Canada, Andy Petrillo.
Right here on One Soccer. All right, guys.
Canada, oh, baby.
Come on, baby.
Exactly. Sick. Canada, oh baby, you big red beauty. All right, let's get to our Tony Bet top picks. We're going to stick with CONCACAF Champions Cup for our Tony Bet top picks. Forge is a plus 480 underdog in leg one versus Monterrey. The Mexican side is a minus 197 favorite. The draw is plus 309. Wheels, take it away.
It's tough to make a bet. I was on Tony Bet a little bit earlier. That's the only line, just the win, draw, or loss odds. The game result odds are the only ones that are up. I'd be tempted. It's going to be cold. I'd be tempted to play the under in this one. I think Monterrey will just want to keep this tight, close in order to take care of business back home. So I severely lean the under to this one. Keep your eye on Tony Bet for the totals as they're posted closer to kickoff.
Is there a world where Forge go and score that first early goal and sit back and get a 1-0 win, and then there's absolutely everything to play for next week? If I had money, that's what I'm putting it on.
Hey, they did that to TFC. I'm not trying to say
it could happen. No, it could happen. Like, and a nice little Brian Wright goal that just settles everything. Or Dan Nimick with a header. I mean,
just saying.
I like it.
What about Cavalry underdog plus 420? Puma's the favorite minus 179. The draw plus 290. Wheels.
I think that Pumas are more likely to bring more of a squad that resembles a first team group to Vancouver Island this weekend. And because of that small pitch and the way things played out for Cavalry last year, they played Orlando City to a 3-0 loss and a 3-1 loss. I would tip the over. Line should be somewhere 2.5, 3. I'm happy leaning to the over in this one. Again, not replacing Dan Klomp, but we'll see what Warshevsky and Musi from day number one can do if they can do some damage in this game. So I like goals.
It's going to be cold and miserable. Could be 0-0.
Hey, we're okay with that. You've got the 12th player, right? Those are usually the fans. We need the 13th as well, called Mother Nature.
Oh, really?
That's Wheels. That's Jordan. I'm Andy. Thanks for tuning in to One Soccer Today. Remember, CONCACAF Champions Cup. You can watch all the action right here on One Soccer. All your CPL news as well right here on One Soccer. That season, a little further away. That begins in April. But all of that information, all the news you need right here.